you very much. And I want to thank all of you for being here at the end of the day, but you made the time to come here, and I'm very grateful. As I was listening to you, one of the things that has struck me that I'm very happy about is the desire to upgrade, is the desire to learn as far as you want to, or as far as the opportunity exists for you to do so. I remember as a young graduate student in Canada, I met a lady who had a PhD in nursing. And I asked myself, but why not? You know, and coming back home a long time ago and recognizing that for nursing, for example, the highest that many of them could go to was a diploma, I didn't think was fair. And that in order to have a degree, you had to go to the University of Ghana, which was taking just a few. So that was why when we opened our nursing, School of Nursing at the University of Cape Coast, we made it a degree one. Because I feel the opportunity must exist for the person to make use of it. But if you already set the ceiling for that person, it means you determine how far the person can go. And I thought that the protest should have come from the doctors. Because you see, we focus so much on them. We should continue to do that. I don't take anything away from them. But the further you train the doctor, and you don't train the nurse along that way, how is the doctor going to get the support he needs? If now you're using computers for many things and you leave the nurse behind, it means that in the end, the doctor is not only going to be the only doctor in the district. He's also going to have to perform the role that a nurse could have performed, that a lab technician could have performed, that somebody else in the health environment could have performed. And so in all of these, we put unnecessary stress on the doctor. So I thought the protest should have been coming from there, but it doesn't matter. All we're saying is that the opportunities must exist for people to learn to the highest level. Things are changing rapidly everywhere, including health. And so if we keep them at these levels, and every time we need to fly in experts, I think it's a disincentive to our youth, because they are not any more or less bright than the people who come. And most of the time they come and learn from us anyway. So why is it that we cannot open the doors and allow many people to learn to the highest order? So these were some of the thoughts behind transforming the polytechnics, for example, into technical universities. If you decide you want to be, I don't know, a building technologist, why should your job just be to look at the things that will be important? How about understanding how those things come together? How about seeing what it is in your environment that you can use to produce same or even better? But because you set the person's ceiling so low, that's all the person can do. And in the end, those people also want degrees. So what happens? I've had some in my classes at the university. And what they've done is to put aside everything they've done at the Polytechnic because they want a degree. So it's like this child is in school forever. If he graduated with a friend from high school, and that person came to the university, at the end of 4 years, the person has a degree. He has to go to the Polytechnic and spend 3 years, and spend another 2 years working. And if he had the first class, then the university will admit him to come and do a 2-year program. Otherwise, he has to start all over again. So this particular person who has chosen to learn a technical vocational, to be in the technical vocational profession, has to take, what, 10 years? And I mean, excuse me to say, but we don't have 9 lives. We have 1. And I wanted to understand, why is this the case? What is it that we can do, especially when we're always talking about adding value? Where is the value going to come from? If you train your people just to be at low level and so on, and we all know how very bright our kids are. And it's when you have opportunities to teach elsewhere, sometimes in the so-called top universities, and you come back and you don't understand what is happening. So it's one thing I've learned from you, and I'm very, very happy. And I'm sure that you are not asking for the moon. But as Dr. Jewapia has said, we are going to need further dialogue. You know, we did our manifesto with you, with your leadership, with your groups, with random people and so on, but also focused discussions. And that is why so many of the things you're even asking for are already in the manifesto. So I would urge all of us to find a little time and to read it. For example, somebody was asking for tax waivers on means of transport. If you turn to page 64 of our manifesto, Roman numeral, just number I, it is there. It's already captured because your people asked for it. And somebody was asking for a medical laboratory science council. It's in X, so please take some time and read it. But what I want to plead with all of us is that going forward, we work together. You know, we have done this manifesto together. So the implementation should also be group work. You know, democracy should be about harnessing everybody's voice so that we can all understand the issues and nobody feels I've been sidelined or nobody is listening to me. I wanted 10 things and I should get it in 1 month. Dialogue can explain things and we can all come to appreciate the way forward. If you ask us, maybe you have a 000 draft, because until we get the handing over notes and get all kinds of documents, you cannot really say that I have a draft, like I'm going to implement it today. Okay, so we are going to need you even further, and that is part of the reason why we've come here this evening. So please read your manifesto, read the manifesto, and maybe you'll find even other things. I know that needs will change, other things will come. It's only normal in any human environment. But I believe that when we work together, we'll be able to prioritize. Everything is a priority. It's a priority. And sometimes prioritizing out of priorities can in itself be a challenge, but we can do it. In our own lives, we do it. So what is it that should come first that can affect 2, 3 things down the road? You know, then that will have a strategy. And then we can go forward and make a lot of progress. So yes, postgraduate training is something I will support very, very much. We talked about the conditions of service. Definitely, I think we had one with the doctors, didn't we, in our time? But we never did. They haven't completed it, so I don't know, 4 years, what has happened? Why is that not completed? Anyway, we all know why. So this is not a class. We are just looking for answers. And many of you have also emphasized infrastructure. And yes, so you see, when people are laughing at us that we don't eat roads and we don't eat buildings, now we see that they are all connected to our well-being, they are all connected to our welfare, and they are all connected to advancing the economy. Because it's all about the human life. It's about the human person who is at the center of what it is that we do. So the health, the welfare, the education, the business, everything should be, the spokes should connect very, very well. And there are certain things we all need. If, for example, all we do is to ensure there's water everywhere in this country, I think it would be a huge achievement. If that's all we do. Because those of us who've had the privilege of traveling around the country, let me tell you, there's a lot of work we need to do. There's a whole lot of work that we need to focus on. Sometimes, you know, I turn my tap on and there's water. Some don't even have that water to turn on. They never have. So you are in health. What kind of illnesses are they likely to be prone to? And how will that even affect their economic productivity? Why would a doctor want to go and live there? Because he knows what life is like with water and what life will be like without water. So yes, I'm all for incentives, but I also want us to consider upgrading the quality of life everywhere in this country, with good roads, with good schools, with good health facilities, with good personnel. That way it may be relatively easier, because I used to ask my teachers, how much money can anybody pay me to go and live in a place where my child cannot have good education? How much is that worth? You know, so I think that we should all be interested and support the provision of basic infrastructure. We should have crossed this bridge maybe a long time ago. We haven't. It doesn't matter. Now we know it's a bridge we need to cross, and we need all of you to come on board to support that. Of course, to have a single doctor, I think there was a time there was only one doctor in the Upper West some time ago, and I tried to find this doctor. You know, and then I asked myself, if I find him, what will I say? Congratulations or well done or what? He's one person, and the day is not going to to get longer for him because he's the only doctor. He will get tired. He'll make mistakes. It's normal. So you see, when we get to our councils, and we are talking about admission of students, we should not take it very seriously. This whole thing, Korle Bu was established by Professor Eastman in 1964. And here we are. What is the highest number of medical students that Korle Bu admits? Is it 200? Look at our population. And yet when we were setting up our medical school at the University of Cape, the tough time, that will fill the whole evening's narrative. The tough time we got. And if you are not very firm and convinced in what you want to do, you give up. What do the 200 doctors do? Assuming they all graduate every year, what is our birth rate? We have a youthful population. So some things will have to change. It's the same with our law school. Do you have too many lawyers? I don't think so. So why is it that it becomes, the students write the exam so often they even give up? Why should they give up on their dreams? When there's something you can do. Okay. Why it got to a point, we sent 200 students to Cuba, some for the medical, And it was an interesting program for me because, again, we talked to people. And the Muslim, and of course, it's not just Muslim, all of us ladies. When we have our ladies' problems, we'd like to be taken care of by lady doctors. Is that asking for too much? I don't think so. And I'm sure the same goes for the males. When it comes to certain issues, they are more comfortable to have a male doctor attend to them. But we are not so lucky because we don't have so many women. Okay, so I think that picking, was it 40 Muslim girls? And they've done a fantastic job. The reports are pleasing. Because they also want their patients to be handled a certain way. And I said, it's not just you, it's us too. It's all of us. So we're able to train 200 there. And I think we've been continuing also. I don't know what the status is now. So my question was, how does Cuba do it? Was it 20, we are in 2020, was it 2016 or 17? We were able to ship 3,000 doctors, I think, to Brazil alone. 3,000, that's in my country. We put all the medical schools together. How many do we graduate a year? 3,000. And when there's any crisis in the world, they send you doctors. How do they do it? How many teaching hospitals do they have? What facilities are in there? How do they train their specialists or their consultants to be able to guide the students after they've done their pre-med? So what is it that we can learn from them? Because the health situation, I always sympathize with the healthcare providers. Because you get there in the morning, people have spread their cloth on the floor, they've been waiting, and the poor doctor sitting there with OPD like all of us here, what's he going to do? And then we complain, when you go, they just write something for you when you leave. How can he spend 1 hour with you? How can he do that? Then he has to take off just 8 people in a day. If you want him to spend 1 hour with you and tell you everything about your body and so on and so forth. So I feel that such expansion of programs should be supported by all of us, because in the end they help all of us. The new hospitals must be built. More doctors must be trained. And health is such a complex area. Nursing is such a complex area. Okay, there are all the areas of specialization. We need to encourage more. We need to train more. We need to reduce the burden on our healthcare providers. And in all of this, maybe to be a bit gender biased, is a woman who suffers. We know what it is like to hold the baby on our shoulder because the baby has a temperature all night, waiting for the day to dawn, so you can take